I stared at Jake in disbelief, the divorce papers trembling in his outstretched hand. My heart pounded as I struggled to process his words. Melissa, I'm leaving you for Amber. My gaze shifted to my younger sister, standing beside him with a smug smile. Amber had been crashing at our place for weeks, her presence a constant irritation. But this was unthinkable. What's going on? I managed, my mouth dry. You're leaving me? For Amber? Jake nodded, his expression devoid of remorse. I'm in love with her. We want to be together. Amber slipped her arm around his waist, leaning into him. Sorry, sis. He's mine now. A surge of anger welled up inside me, hot and visceral. How could they betray me like this? My own husband and sister? You've been carrying on behind my back, I accused, glaring at them. How long has this been going on? Jake shrugged nonchalantly. A few months. We just couldn't fight our feelings anymore. Don't act so surprised, Amber taunted. You're always working late. Jake needed someone around to keep him company. I recoiled as if struck. The cruel words stung, but there was truth in them. My career had consumed me lately, as I pursued a partnership at the law firm. Gripping the divorce papers, I fought back tears. Get out! Both of you! Get out of my house! Jake stepped forward, unfazed. Just sign the papers, Melissa. Make this easy on all of us. My hands shook with rage as I ripped the documents in half, the papers fluttering to the floor. Like hell I will. You want a divorce? You'll have to take me to court for it. Amber rolled her eyes. Always have to make things difficult, don't you? That's enough, I shouted, my voice cracking with emotion. I want you gone, now. As they turned to leave, Jake paused. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, and good luck keeping any of my family's money in the divorce. The implications hung heavy. Jake came from old money, his family's fortune dwarfing my own career earnings. But in that moment, I didn't care about money. I cared about piecing together my shattered life and heart. As the door slammed behind them, I crumpled to the floor, sobs racking my body. The days after Jake's bombshell blurred together in a haze of anger and disbelief. How could he do this to me, after 7 years of marriage, and with my own sister, no less? I tried confronting Amber, but she acted like her betrayal was no big deal. Don't be so dramatic, Melissa. Jake and I are in love. You'll get over it. Her cavalier attitude only fueled my rage. I wanted to scream, to hurl insults and recriminations, but I bit my tongue, refusing to stoop to her level. Instead, I focused on the legal realities of the situation. Jake made good on his threat, his lawyer serving me with divorce papers a week later. The terms were obscenely one-sided in his favor, thanks to his family's wealth. You'll get nothing, his lawyer sneered when I objected. Not a penny of the Weston family fortune. I met their greed with steely determination. We'll see about that in court. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, living under the same roof as Jake and Amber became unbearable torture. Their indiscretions played out in front of me daily, with no attempt at discretion. Keep it down, you two. I'd yell from my bedroom, trying in vain to block out the noises of their lovemaking. Amber would sashay out later, smirking. What's the matter, sis? Don't like seeing what you're missing? The cruel taunts cut deep, her words dripping with smug satisfaction. She had scored the ultimate victory, stealing my husband while living rent-free in my home. I fantasized about kicking her out, changing the locks while she was gone. But without a legal leg to stand on, I had no choice but to endure their contempt. One night, I returned home from the office to find them entangled on the living room couch. A strangled cry escaped my lips before I could stop it. They broke apart, Jake not even bothering to cover his exposed body. This is my house, too, you know, he said with an arrogant sneer. Something inside me snapped in that moment. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass vase, and hurled it at the couch. It missed them, shattering against the wall with a deafening crash. Get out! I screamed, my face contorted with rage. Get out of my house and my life, you lying, cheating bastards! Jake scrambled to his feet, pulling on his pants as Amber cowered behind the couch. You're going to regret this, he spat. My family's lawyers will bury you in court. I didn't care about his threats or his money. In that moment, all I wanted was for them to feel a fraction of the pain and humiliation they'd inflicted upon me. After my outburst, the atmosphere at home became even more toxic. Jake and Amber took petty delight in flaunting their affair, while his lawyers bombarded me with threats and demands to vacate the premises. This is emotional cruelty, my own lawyer warned. They're trying to grind you down so you'll accept whatever measly settlement they offer. I refused to cave, digging in my heels. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one. But the constant stress and drama took its toll, making it impossible to focus on work. One evening, I arrived home to find the living room in disarray. Shattered glass, overturned furniture, the stench of alcohol thick in the air. Jake and Amber sat amidst the wreckage, drunk and arguing. "Look what you made me do," Jake slurred, gesturing around the trashed room. "You're always nagging, always ruining everything." Amber shot me a venomous glare as I surveyed the destruction. "Stay out of this, Melissa. It's none of your business." "None of my business?" I echoed incredulously. "You're wrecking my home." That set Jake off again. "Your home? You mean my family's home that you've been mooching in?" He lurched to his feet, stalking toward me with clenched fists. "Well, those days are over. We're selling this place, and you're not getting a dime." I stood my ground, glaring back defiantly. "We're not divorced yet. I have rights." "Do you?" He laughed, an ugly sound. "My family's lawyers will bury you. You'll be lucky if they let you keep the clothes on your back when this is done." Amber cackled from the couch. Maybe she can move in with one of her loser boyfriends. The insinuation was like a slap in the face. I'd been faithful throughout our marriage, my career the only mistress, whereas Jake was the one debasing our vows with his tawdry affair. "That's it!" I roared, grabbing a lamp from an end table. "I've had enough of your disrespect." Jake's eyes went wide as I reared back with the lamp. Amber scrambled away, shrieking. At the last second, I let the lamp slip from my grasp, crashing to the floor in an explosion of ceramic and glass. They flinched, frozen in fear for a brief moment. Then Jake straightened, emboldened by liquid courage. "Get out," he growled, jabbing a finger at me, "before I call cops and have you removed for destruction of property." Chest heaving, I realized I was outmatched and outnumbered. With a last withering glare, I turned and fled the home I once thought was mine. I crashed at a friend's place for a few days after the blow-up with Jake and Amber, too proud and stubborn to seek refuge with family. But I couldn't impose on her hospitality forever. With no home of my own and legal fees mounting, I had to face reality. I was broke. Law had been my passion, my life's work. But the divorce had derailed everything. With no income and the firm's partnership permanently out of reach, I was forced to put my career on indefinite hold. That's how I found myself standing before the Greasy Spoon Diner's fry cook one morning, hat in hand. "Please," I pleaded, swallowing my pride. "I need a job, any job. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." The stocky, apron-clad man eyed me skeptically. "You sure about that, Miss Fancy Lawyer? This ain't no white-collar gig." I squared my shoulders, determined. "I'm sure. Just give me a chance to prove myself." He shrugged and handed me an apron. "Okay then, you're on waitress duty. Don't screw it up." That's how I landed the most humbling job of my life, taking orders and refilling coffee at a truck stop diner. My law degree, years of higher education, all rendered meaningless by my present circumstances. The other waitresses were cosmetically enhanced single moms who regarded me with a mixture of pity and disdain. "What's your story, honey?" one asked during a rare lull. "You run off with a deadbeat or something?" I bristled at the insinuation. If only they knew I was the one who got left. Most of the regulars were long-haul truckers, the salty-tongued men not bothering to mask their appraisal of my looks and figure. A few tried hitting on me with crude overtures. "Why don't you park that sweet rump next to me for a spell, darlin'?" I deflected their advances with icy politeness, keeping my distance. All except one. Frank was a grizzled, heavy-set trucker, old enough to be my father, but there was a kindness and decency about him that set him apart. He always tipped generously and treated me with respect. One slow afternoon I was refilling his coffee when he fixed me with those deep-set eyes. "You seem too smart for this place. What's a gal like you doing waiting tables?" I tensed, afraid to unload my troubles on a stranger. But there was something disarming about Frank's grandfatherly demeanor that made me open up. The words came tumbling out, the crumbled career, the divorce, my husband's betrayal with my own sister. Frank listened without judgment, slowly shaking his head. "Sorry to hear that, kiddo. Sounds like those two jackasses really did a number on you." I blinked back tears, stunned by his blunt empathy. As the burly trucker patted my hand, I realized I'd found an ally in my darkest hour. I thought I'd hit rock bottom when I took the diner job, but Amber made sure to remind me there were deeper depths of humiliation to plumb. It was a slow weekday morning shift when she strutted through the doors, dripping in designer labels and gaudy jewelry. She spotted me across the diner and made a beeline straight for my section, that infuriating smirk plastered on her face. Well, well, if it isn't my big sister, the famous lawyer, Amber crooned loud enough for everyone to hear, slinging hash and waiting tables like the peons. My cheeks burned with shame as the other waitresses and truckers gawked shamelessly. I shot her a pleading look, silently begging her not to make a scene. But Amber was relishing this, always eager to rub salt in my wounds. "What's the matter, Mel?" she taunted, using the childhood nickname like a dagger. "Jake's family money not going as far as you hoped?" I clenched my fists, biting back the torrent of vitriol I longed to spew. Amber had been living it up on my ex-husband's dime while I could barely scrape by, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crack. "I'll get you a menu," I muttered through gritted teeth. "Take a seat wherever you'd like." Amber cackled at my forced politeness. "Oh, I'm not here to eat, sis. Just thought I'd pop in and see how the mighty have fallen." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Frank watching the exchange from his usual booth, a concerned frown etched on his craggy face. I shook my head minutely, urging him not to intervene. "Well, you've had your fun," I said in a low, measured tone. "If you're not going to order anything, then I'll have to ask you to leave. We have a no-loitering policy." For a brief second, Amber looked taken aback by my poise. Then that wicked grin resurfaced as she crossed her arms defiantly. "Actually, I'm not done yet, Melissa. There's one more juicy bit of news you might want to hear." My heart sank, already dreading whatever cruel bombshell she had in store. Amber leaned in with mock confidentiality. "I'm pregnant," she announced with perverse delight. "That's right, I've got a bun in the oven. Yours truly is going to be a mommy." The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating. Of course she would find a way to twist the knife deeper, to perpetuate her conquest over me. "Congratulations," I managed weakly. "I'm happy for you." Amber cackled again at my pained expression. "No, you're not. But don't worry, I'll be sure to send you all the gory details about my difficult pregnancy, every ache, every bout of morning sickness." She turned and sashayed out, leaving me to face the prying stares and muttered whispers of the diner patrons. In that moment, I felt lower than I ever had in my life. Amber's taunting words echoed in my mind for days after her diner ambush. I tried to shake it off, to not let her get to me. But the hurt ran deep, compounded by feelings of failure and inadequacy. How had I fallen so far so fast? My life had been on track, a budding legal career, a stable marriage. Now I was a broke, scorned waitress, while my cheating ex and backstabbing sister lived it up on his family's fortune. I confided in Frank during one of our late-night conversational interludes after the dinner rush. The gruff but kind-hearted trucker had become an unlikely confidant during my darkest days. "That little lady seems to get her kicks by stomping all over you," he grumbled, shaking his head. "It ain't right, the way they done you dirty." I shrugged, trying to maintain composure. "Amber's just lashing out because she's jealous. She's always been threatened by me, ever since we were kids." Frank fixed me with those piercing blue eyes. "You listen here, Melissa. Don't you go making excuses for that poor behavior. What they did was low down and selfish as it gets." His blunt assessment struck a nerve. As much as I hated to admit it, Frank was right. Amber and Jake's betrayal knew no bounds of decency. They had schemed and manipulated, casting me aside like a used rag. I wish there was some way to make them pay," I confessed in a small voice. "To really make them hurt the way they've hurt me." Frank scratched at his whiskered chin, mulling over my plaintive words. "Well now, hurting them back ain't gonna solve nothing, only gonna make you as rotten as them on the inside." I opened my mouth to protest, but he raised a calloused hand to silence me. "But that don't mean they shouldn't face consequences, neither. Way I see it, you need to hit 'em where it really stings." My brow furrowed. "How do you mean?" The corner of Frank's mouth quirked upwards in a sly half-grin. "Let me ask you this. Just how did Mr. Moneybags make his family's fortune anyhow?" It took me a moment to parse his meaning. Then it clicked into place. He was insinuating Jake's wealthy clan had skeletons in their corporate closet. Shady dealings, cooked books, the kinds of white-collar infractions my legal training could sniff out. "Frank, are you saying what I think you're saying?" I asked carefully. He leveled me with a look that answered the question plainly. "Way I see it, those highfalutin types tend to cut a lot of corners on their way to the top. Probably got more'n a few under-the-table tricks to cover up." My heart raced as the implications washed over me. If Jake's family fortune was ill-gotten through illegal means, an anonymous tip to the right authorities could unravel everything. Their assets, their lavish lifestyle, all of it could be jeopardized. It was a long shot, a wildly risky move that could blow back on me. But after all they'd put me through, the prospect of ruining them in return filled me with a vengeful glee. I met Frank's gaze, my jaw set in steely resolution. "Tell me what to do." Frank's trucker buddies came through with some damning intel on Jake's family business. Everything from under-the-table payments to cooked books hiding massive tax fraud. Armed with documentation, I wrote up an anonymous report and mailed it to the IRS whistleblower hotline. For weeks, I stayed vigilant but didn't hear a peep about any investigation. I started to wonder if my revenge gambit had fizzled before it began. Then one morning, Amber came strutting into the diner again, that insufferable grin plastered across her face. "Well, if it isn't my favorite waitress sister," she crowed, sliding into a booth. "I simply had to come rub my latest good news in your face." Here we go again, I thought bitterly, bracing for another round of her verbal torture. Amber licked her lips like a cat toying with a cornered mouse. "Jake's family is building me a dream house. Can you believe that, sis? A multi-million-dollar mansion just for little ol' me." She went on to gleefully describe the lavish amenities, home theater, wine cellar, his and her walk-in closets. With each boastful detail, I felt the white-hot lick of resentment. "That's great, Amber," I managed through gritted teeth. "I'm real happy for you two." Lies had never tasted so foul, but I knew I had to play along to avoid tipping her off that her free ride was about to grind to a halt. Amber's grin widened as she reached across the table to pat my hand mockingly. "Aw, don't worry, sis. Maybe once the baby's born, Jake and I can hire you as a nanny or something." The suggestion laughable, like I'd ever let that demon spawn anywhere near me after what she'd done. I forced an unconvincing smile and slipped my hand free. "Gee, you're too kind. I'll be sure to keep that in mind." Amber opened her mouth, probably to spew another barrage of insults, but whatever she meant to say was cut off by the harsh trill of her cell phone. "Hang on, it's Jake," she said, beaming as she answered the call. "Hey, babe, what's—" Her expression shifted instantly from smug to stricken as she listened. I watched, feeling a sick sense of satisfaction creep in as the color drained from her face. "What? No, that can't be right," Amber stammered, looking around the diner with panicked eyes. "You're sure about this?" She fell silent, listening to the voice on the other end. Then her gaze landed on me, narrowing with rage and suspicion. You did this, didn't you?" she hissed, stabbing an accusing finger my way. "You called the IRS on us, you vindictive bitch." I didn't respond, keeping my expression carefully neutral. Let her stew in that uncertainty. "This isn't over, Melissa," Amber raged, shoving her way out of the booth. "If you've ruined everything, I swear to God I'll make your life even more of a living hell." She stormed out, leaving me alone with the other patrons who had stopped eating to gawk at the commotion. A few truckers whistled and chuckled. "Damn, Melly," Frank rumbled from across the diner. "What'd you do to get her riled up like that?" I shot him a thin smile. "Oh, nothing much. Just finally decided to give them a taste of their own medicine." The fallout from my anonymous tip was swift and severe. Within days, the IRS had frozen all of Jake's family assets pending an investigation into their corporate finances. Their bank accounts, investment portfolios, everything locked down tighter than Fort Knox. I couldn't help but revel in the delicious irony. The very wealth that Jake and Amber had lorded over me was now a barren wasteland, drained on accusations of shady dealings and tax evasion. Their precious mansion and lavish lifestyle had transformed into a gilded cage overnight. Amber was apoplectic when she stormed into the diner a few days later, eyes blazing with hatred. She barged straight toward my section, ignoring the annoyed grumbles of other customers. "You conniving little witch," she spat, slamming her hands on my station's countertop. Look what you've done to us. I regarded her coolly, unfazed by the melodramatics. I'm sure I have no idea what you're raving about, dear sister. Like hell you don't. Amber's voice had risen to a shrill screech, drawing glances from the other patrons. We're completely tapped out because of your twisted revenge scheme. I shrugged, keeping my expression impassive, despite the surge of gratification. Sounds like you two might have to tighten those Prada belts for a while. A vein throbbed in Amber's forehead as she struggled to contain her fury. You've ruined everything, you miserable, jealous hag. The feds are picking our lives apart because of whatever lies you fed them. Pushing away from the counter, I stepped closer until we were nose to nose. Amber recoiled slightly at my sudden proximity. Maybe next time you'll think twice before betraying your own flesh and blood, I said in a low, dangerous tone. Before stabbing me in the back and stealing my husband from me. For once, Amber seemed to have no snappy comeback. She opened and closed her mouth wordlessly, suddenly looking very small and uncertain. This isn't over, she finally muttered, the bluster gone from her voice. Jake's lawyers will get us out of this, and then you'll be sorry. I watched her turn and practically slink from the diner, head bowed. A small, petty part of me relished seeing the formerly smug vixen knock down a few pegs. No sooner had Amber departed than Frank materialized at my side, a proud grin plastered across his craggy face. Well, I'll be damned, he chuckled. You actually went and did it, girl. Stuck it good to those lying snakes. I shrugged, though I could feel my own lips twitching upward. I just helped make sure justice was served. If they were operating on the wrong side of the law, they had to pay the price eventually. Frank slapped his hand on the countertop, letting loose a booming guffaw. That's my girl! Letting those scoundrels have it with their own greed. His laughter was infectious, and I found myself chuckling along. For the first time in forever, the weight of anger and hurt seemed lighter on my shoulders. So what's next for you, Melly? Frank asked once we'd settled down. You gonna keep slinging hash here with me, or you got bigger plans? I considered the question, surprised to find I hadn't really thought about my own future lately. I'd been so consumed with righting the wrongs against me. You know, Frank, I said slowly, I just might have an idea about that.